So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode we saw quite a lot of events happen, such as a big war down here in the southern African region. We also had a war between Morocco and the Tunisian country. The expansion of the Diamond Alliance happened, as well as a few other alliances being created, such as this German one down here and this Polish-Latvian one here. Most importantly, we saw the collapse, or I guess civil war, starting in the Dark Red Union. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe, and yeah, let's get straight into it, because this is going to be probably the biggest episode of the series yet, so yeah, let's get into it. Now, obviously, at the end of the last episode, like I said, the Dark Red Union did go into an active state of civil war, and I'm sure a few people aren't happy with this, but well, let's just get into it. Starting off down here, we are going to see the French Rebellion expand. So we are first going to see the French troops push up here and kind of connect up with this exclave that they have, and they're also going to cut off all Dark Red Union access to the Mediterranean Sea, so that's now officially gone. And also, you're probably wondering, are these like kind of exclave bits random? No, these were where the French and Dutch separatist parties were most popular. But in the kind of more popular kind of metropolitan regions of the country, they're not very popular, as you can see here and kind of here. This is where a lot of the people kind of live. There weren't any kind of votes. Well, there was a lot, but it's not as much as these regions, which are the more rural areas. As we also see some like kind of, I guess, resistance pop up from here, and a lot of the military in these regions are actually starting to join up with the rebellions. And another bad thing happens, and that is that the southern half of the Dark Red Union gets completely cut off from the northern half. We also come around here and see this kind of just army go out a lot more. But it's a bit of a different story in the north, where we are going to see some Dutch success, but the Dutch rebellion isn't as kind of backed as the French rebellion, because the Dutch are like the main country in the Dark Red Union. That's where most of the people, like the French were stronger than the Dutch for like a long time, but the Dutch are more, I guess, wanting of this union than the French. It's kind of like Scotland and England, like the French kind of Scotland and the Dutch kind of England, but they're pretty similar in strength instead. But the French really want independence, and the Dutch don't, because the kind of lot of the Dark Red Union is more based around the Dutch. However, the Dutch obviously still do want independence. So they're actually going to push here and get very close to the capital. However, there's, like I said, not as much support, so they're going to be able to push into this exclave here and actually completely wipe it out. And they'll also push back against the Dutch resistance up here and just push up, you know, like that. And they're also going to start their first invasions of it. Similarly, over here, we're going to see them push into this like French sort of rebellion area, and also this northern region, because this is also another region which is not too popular, and they're actually going to be able to cut this exclave into two. However, in the south, there's actually a lot of countries that used to exist down here, and they're kind of backing this independence movement, because they're hoping that if the French win, they'll give them independence too. And the French are able to sort of get up to this region here and start like just closing in on the Brittany area of the Dark Red Union, which is the one of the most populous cities in this country. And there's even more success in these southern regions as we see the French just completely take over all of this. Now, what is the world's reaction to this kind of Dark Red Union civil war? Well, despite the fact that the Spanish and I guess the Diamond Alliance as a whole has been at war with the Dark Red Union in recent episodes, they don't like the fact that this is happening. And that is mainly because of communism down here. They're scared that if these like countries that aren't as strong as the Dark Red Union don't have the same influence come around, they could splinter or possibly even like adopt this communism ideology, which would probably be like one of the worst outcomes for these guys. Or even worse, the French could join up with the communists and like invade Spain, and then there'd be Spain, and that'd be a huge front line then that they'd have to deal with. So what's actually going to happen is the Diamond Alliance is going to start to send aid over to the kind of, I guess, the old government, and we're actually going to put a pause on this war for now, and we're going to go somewhere else in the world. As we're now going to come down to China, which is a country that we haven't really been focusing on recent episodes, and they haven't really been focused on at all since the end of World War I, which is when their empire kind of collapsed. But they've been kind of chilling in the AU. However, a pretty bad event for them is going to happen. I was taking a look at the major city layer, which I really should have kept track on in the Dark Red Union Civil War. That's my bad. I'm taking a look down here in this kind of region right here. There is a really big nuclear power plant that China owns. And this is kind of going to be a little bit sidetracked, because I know I haven't talked about nuclear bombs in recent episodes. That's because the world is kind of slowing down and doesn't really want to produce them anymore. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But more focus on the minute. We're going to be focused right kind of here at the minute. I don't know where it was. I'm just going to say it's here. But right here is one of the biggest nuclear power plants in the world. And it produces a lot of China's nuclear energy, and actually pretty much produces most of it. Like, it produces about 80% of the Chinese nuclear energy. However, a really, really bad event from here is going to happen. And that's going to be that this power plant down here is going to explode. And what's kind of going to happen is nuclear radiation is going to start splurting from all over it. And this city down here, or this kind of area here, which is carrying the radiation, this explosion happened in the middle of summer, and in China the wind goes north in summer. So what's going to happen is this wind, or the nuclear radiation, is going to start to travel up north, and it'll pass by many of these major cities on the coast, which is going to kill millions of people with nuclear radiation. It's going to carry on until it hits this coast here in Shandong, and it's pretty much going to stagnate at this point. And this is one of the most deadly events in history. Millions of people have dying of radiation sickness, and millions more have died from cancer and whatever comes with that. And Chernobyl in real life, well, there's a lot of people who are in the Eastern European area, but in this world, China is extremely populated. They have hundreds of million people living around these coasts, and a lot more people are dying than Chernobyl in real life. This is probably about maybe 10-20 times worse than Chernobyl was. And another bad thing this does for China is the exports that are coming from around the Pacific Oceans. A lot of crops and stuff that are grown in this region of America, they're going to be blocked off because they can't come this way now, because there's obviously radiation, and China is going to start to have a massive famine at the same time. Obviously, China's a capable country, they can try and grow their own food, but they're starting recently to rely on a lot of exports, and what it's going to cause is basically the EU is going to send a lot of food down to China. There's just lots of stuff that they're not even focusing much on their own country, and maybe they're focusing down on China. And overall, this is just a huge, just terrible situation down here, and we'll see if it gets better in the next few episodes. But for now, we're going to focus on some other things. That's going to be over here in Caspia. Mind you, this is all going on at the same time as the Dark doing the Civil War, so it hasn't quite started or ended yet. This is probably the middle points of it. But the the Anatolians, they're going to invade the Purple Country. And that's because, similar to what happened with Carthage in the last episode, or Tunisia, whatever you call them, they had documents that these guys were going to join the Diamond Alliance, so they're going to invade them, and they're going to take over the capital, and they're going to be completely destroyed. These guys formerly did have a defensive pact with Albania, but at this point, obviously that was part of the treaty that they had to get rid of it, so yeah, they died, and they're a lot weaker than Tunisia was, so they're not going to be able to survive this. But let's take a look at this peace treaty. So in this peace treaty here, the country is split in half. Most of the country goes over most of the country goes over to Anatolia. However, one province down here will actually go over to southern Anatolia near the coast. And they also receive another document that says that Thrice is going to join with the Diamond Alliance. And while the Anatolian military is mobilizing down here in this Bosphorus Strait area, surprise, surprise, Thrice joins up really quickly because they notice this and oh god, we don't want the same thing that happened to these guys down here. And similarly, in the next few kind of weeks or months, these guys also join up with the alliance. And yeah, that's really not good down here, but it's going to get even worse in Western Europe as the British Union, or I'm just going to stop calling it the British Republic, is going to join up with the Diamond Alliance. And in the next coming weeks, so does Ireland. And the Diamond Alliance now is kind of, well, probably the strongest alliance in the world. They have a ton of top 10 powers and even more top 20 powers, so that's really going to pay off. And I know these guys, they're strong obviously, but at the minute I would say the Diamond Alliance would win. It would probably end in a stalemate really, but it's very, very close. And yeah, but coming down to Morocco now, we're going to see something interesting happening. As for the last God knows how many episodes, these guys have been a flawed democracy. However, now they're officially switching to socialism. They favoured the idea of this for a long time, and eventually their government officially does it. And also, I just realised I have to get rid of the Maltese ideology, so yeah. But these guys have been wanting to do this for ages, and they're officially doing it now. And yeah, they're now a socialist country, so just gotta guess. Also coming out of Madagascar, they're turning socialist, and that's for another reason. That's that they helped them in the war, and they're like, hey, this is your debt, we got to turn socialist. But the Madagascarian government wanted to anyway. And looking at this map, you see that communism has a huge kind of, well, foothold in Africa, and also a bit in Southern Europe. However, mainly it's just these regions here. But that's officially going to change as we come up to Northern Asia. Looking at these dictatorships, they have not done anything ever really. Like this purple one, I don't think they've done a single thing in this series. They're basically like completely neutral. But there's a few countries here that are well, not allied with the EU, and they probably want actually like something, well, that's like different. And looking up here at specifically this grey one, these guys have done nothing just forever, and eventually, well, the people have kind of had enough in this country, and they're going to actually start a civil war, which is communist. And weirdly, we see something happen that we haven't really seen happen before. That is the well, the actual capital city joining in on this, and people in the people all over the country wanted to join up with this rebellion, and the government is just completely just squashed, and there's nothing they can really do with it. And a communist dictatorship will now be established as the first communist country in Asia. Well, if you can't control it, but the first communist country in like deep Asia has been added to this alliance. Well, the first communist country in this region of Asia is, well, now officially here. So yeah, now let's move on to something else. That's actually going to be down in South America. We kind of have a land exchange happening. As you can see, the Falkland Islands belong to the Dark Red Union. Kind of, these guys, that don't really matter in a minute, they'll deal with this after the war. But, well, they can't really hold on to this land, so what they're going to do is they're going to give it over to Argentina. And some people in the country see this as like a weak move from the government, like, why would you give our territory to another country that, like, they don't need it really, so like why would you do this? And it's not like real life Argentina where they like want it, they don't really care if they have it or not. It's like, it's not a big deal for them. They are very close to the Dark Red Union anyway, so I mean they can't just take it as a gift. But another thing we're going to be seeing in South America is the, I have the ideology later on still, is actually going to be the economical alliance expanding. That's going to be one, this purple country, and also we have Peru joining this economical alliance as well. Yeah, that's fine, I guess. Coming to Colombia, instead of joining with the South American Alliance, they're actually going to be joining up with the Octagon Alliance, which is a strange move because it's not really, it doesn't really have a foothold in South America. We also have the Cubans joining up with the Alliance, so yeah, that's fine. And finally, the Baja Californians will also do the same. Sticking also with the Diamond Alliance, the new California government is very much in favour of them, and we are going to see them actually join up with this alliance, which is a strange move considering they just had a cartel that really didn't like the Canadian Union before. And similar thing with Florida, as they will join up with this alliance, because they are also, well, a very kind of country that, well, is influenced at the minute by the Canadian Union. They are a hugely influential power in the Americas, similar to the United States in real life. That is exactly basically what the Canadian Union is in a way, but it's a bit different in other ways as well, because I'd say if the United States was in this, or if they went one-on-one, Canadian Union and United States, the United States would win, because the Canadian Union, while they are strong, they don't have as much viable land as the Americas. Like, if they maybe had California and also Florida, they might be able to, like, toe-to-toe with them. But if the US was 100% power, the Canadian Union would be, like, maybe 75-ish, so they're not as strong, but they're getting their way up there, so they're okay. But anyway, I'm finally going to stop the yapping on the other events that no one cares about, and we're going to get back to the main event of today's video, which is the Dark Red Union's civil war down here. Hold on, that was really weird. And yeah, the French are going to be able to take over this entire country, and the French will unite the Dark Red Union once again. Nah, just kidding. What we're going to see first is actually the Dutch push back in the north, as they'll be able to capture this city here and it'll start a siege on this one. However, the Germans, who I don't know if they're in the Diamond Alliance here yet, I don't think they are, but they are still going to send support down to the Dutch rebellion. They're still going to send support to the old government in the Dark Red Union, which is going to let them kind of fight back here in this region like this. However, down in the south, this is just going extremely terribly for the Dark Red Union. And what's going to happen is they're actually going to make a spearhead down to the Pyrenees and also a spearhead over here and connect up with this major city. And we're going to see this entire region down here fall over to the Dark Red Union. Actually, no, they can have a holdout in this major city, but it's going to basically get encircled. And yeah, this is a very bad place, the Dark Red Union. This is an extremely valuable city. I believe this was the capital of the whole country, but I might be wrong. Also in Brittany, the encirclement is slowly closing in. However, a lot of support, obviously from the British Union, who's just up north, is coming in. But this city is captured, and they're getting towards the capital. Also see this city being taken, which is right on the French border. And the French rebellion is just the most, just weird, the biggest rebellion in history, you could say. As they are an extremely nationalistic kind of country, and they want a pretty nationalistic government, and they'll basically do something like this, and eventually the holdout in this city right here is eventually destroyed. How take a look at the Dutch, the Dark Red Union is actually going to be able to completely eliminate this one here, and finally start pushing back this kind of region right here. And it's kind of over for the Dutch. The Dutch were at least wanting independence anyway, but this here is done, and eventually just this kind of German area, which is more German than Dutch, so they're basically going to fall over, and the Dutch rebellion has actually been defeated. As they'll officially unite to this northern region up here, and yeah, that's I guess back, so that's cool. But over here in the Dark Union, troops will, coming down from the north, will go ahead and smack into this region of France, and start a, push back against them, obviously, yeah. And they'll even push into this here and take this major city. Also, they'll come over to this peninsula and try and connect up, but the French forces over here, which is the most kind of region that they need to focus on, they're pushing up against the Dark Red Union, and you can see that they're a lot more competent than they were when that awful leader was with the right wing kind of leader. It was terrible, but the left wing government is a lot more capable with the military, so that's I guess a plus, but it's still not going well, as the French country is going to be able to take quite a lot of land back from over here and start a pushback against the Dark Red Union. I also see a really large spearhead going up here and connecting up with the this thing here, and they'll take this city, and a encirclement is going to happen here, which is another pretty big city in the Dark Red Union, and eventually it'll be completely eliminated. And the Dark Red Union, kind of ultra nationalists, you could say even, are going to start to look at this, and they're going to be like, well, our country's losing, and we don't want our country to lose, because if the Dark Red Union falls apart, then Europe will never be the same. Coming over to France, the Brittany area, we see this rebellion make a landing here, and even take this kind of mouth of Brittany here, which that's a weird thing to say, but they're fully enclosing, taking this large major city, and the French capital of the Dark Red Union is officially completely encircled. And they'll also have a pushback against this region in the north right here, and all of Normandy is also now under French rebellion control, and they'll start what is known as the Great March North, which we already had the Great March South in this series, that was over here, but the Great March North is now happening, so yeah, like 1,000 years later, so cool. This rebellion is also, or this kind of occupation area is also completely taken, and down here we have a push up being made by the French rebellion, and they'll also come over here to this region and fall. Yeah, it'll all fall. But eventually another civil war will start in the Dark Red Union, as like I said earlier, the ultra nationalists are very unhappy. What I'm going to see is a separate rebellion start, as the ultra nationalist Dark Red Union forces will, just do this, and they're going to break away. This is the fascist Dark Red Union party, which I don't know why the Dark Red Union had a fascist party. Well, it's not really fascism, it's kind of really just extremely far right wing, but it is pretty much fascism, so yeah. What we weirdly enough see is the government kind of merge with this rebellion, and well, the Dark Red Union's government is just done like that, and well, the fascist reunion. But this city right here is still gonna have the old government, but the French are gonna wipe it out. And now it is weirdly enough the fascist Dark Red Union versus the French country, which is a weird thing that I never thought I'd say. But the Dark Red Union, or the fascist Dark Red Union, is going to be able to push back against the French around here. And I know it's confusing because they fought a whole war against fascism, and it's pretty much completely outlined. But they kind of find in a loophole to keep this yeah, we're not fascist, we are ultra nationalist, which is different kind of things. It's not very different, but they are ultra nationalists basically. And they are going to be able to start a lot better of a fight, as they're able to unite the people a lot better than the old government was, and they'll start a better invasion into the French pockets. And we'll also have a pushback over here, and yeah, it's all done like that. And guess who is actually ruling this kind of thing? Dominic Ishton's son is, and it's weird because Dominic Ishton's son, well, he never really had big, huge interest. He never really wanted to be a prime minister of the Dark Red Union again, but he is seeing what's happening to the state of his country, and after his father was killed, he decided to finally get into politics, and he started his own ultra-nationalist sort of party, which I haven't really talked about, but they have been also extremely popular in some regions, and well, it's kind of led to the fascism kind of coming back. He is an extremely right-wing person, even more than his father, and he is able to unite the people just like his father was. So the French Rebellion will start to really just quickly lose steam, and it'll start to just more so fizzle out as the Dark Red Union is able to recapture the French capital. As more people will decide, instead of rebellion from the Dark Red Union, well, why can't we just join with this new thing where apparently they give equality to all the people in the Dark Red Union, and that's only in the Dark Red Union, But they will be able to get a lot of these pockets back here, and they'll come back under the Dark Red Union's control. And eventually it just gets to this southern region down here, which is the last French holdout. And the Dark Red Union is going to completely push the French out here. And eventually the final French area is done, and the Dark Red Union has technically won the Civil War, but they're not the same. They're not democratic anymore. They are now a dictatorship ruled by a fascist, which isn't really a fascist, he's more ultranationalist, like I said, but I'm going to mark it down as fascism. So in the peace treaty, if there even is one, the Dark Red Union is restored, I guess. But instead of, like you expected, the French and Dutch kind of seceding, we have a, that's not a thing. We have a ultra-nationalist party being declared in the Dark Red Union. And I think to mark the government's kind of slight change, I might shift the colour to be slightly darker, but I don't think I like how that looks. I'm going to keep it as the original. But yeah, I don't think that was on anyone's bucket list of the series. Fascist Dark Red Union. So yeah, that's, I think an interesting turnout of this war. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with this country in the next few episodes. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. This is probably the most important episode of the series so far. Possibly more important than some of the World Wars even. But you'll see it's very, very important. So yeah, I'm going to end off here. Thank you guys so much for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.